CJ Martin joining us. First off, you programmed this weekend, so a couple of days in, what's your impression of the pain you've caused?
Yeah, no, I love it. Like, part of the idea was to challenge these guys. These guys train their butts off, you know, and they haven't always had a chance to fully show what they could do. And so I wanted to make sure it was a good, challenging 4 days for them.
A couple of things that some of the athletes have mentioned yesterday in particular was this has more of a games type feel because they were at a different venue. They were outside. There was a swim element to it. How critical was that to you in programming this to make it more than just what you would do in your box at home?
That was very critical. I would not have wanted to be involved in the programming unless we could truly test these guys in a way. You know, online qualifiers are great, but they're so limited in what you can do. And so it was really important to me to be able to give them an experience where they could dig into some things that they couldn't do in their gyms. And I think that creates fun, it creates camaraderie because you got people trying new things, and that's what makes it fun.
What was the creative process like for you in that regard, and how many iterations did you have to go through to get from crazy idea that I really like, but all right, this is the thing we're actually going to go with?
You know, the iterative process often is just logistics based, right? And so, like, we had some really cool ideas that we wanted to do. We just couldn't pull it off for various reasons, whether it's logistics, equipment, or safety. One of the safety things was, like, we had this amazing swim event that was going to be open water that would end with this just grueling uphill sprint with a sandbag. But with COVID, a lot of people didn't have access to swimming pools. They weren't going to be able to practice. We didn't want to put anybody at danger. So we gave them a safer option.
The other thing that Ron Ortiz mentioned yesterday is that the weights are a little heavier than maybe you would be used to in a Masters event. And he liked that. He liked that there was the trust to, we're going to lift heavy and we're going to put you in those situations. Why was that important for you?
Yeah, so I wanted to make sure that we both got weight and skills that they didn't often see, just because we want to showcase what these guys are capable of. But for example, like, the clean ladder is based off of the weights that they put up on the age group qualifier. So those weren't weights I decided. We took the average of the top 10 and we said, okay, you guys are going to list 70, 75, 80, 85, and 90% of that. And so they were dictating the weights that they were capable of doing.
What's the difficulty of programming an event where you have 13 divisions and your scope of skill, your scope of, weights are more easily scalable, but in terms of movement decisions that you make, how hard is that versus anything else you would normally do when you take into those considerations?
It's tough. And even, you got a 35-year-old male and a 65-year-old female, and trying to make sure that the program has a similar intended stimulus and all that is really tough. I have a huge amount of respect for people that do that. And, like, one of the coaches that I work with down at Invictus, Alec, runs the adaptive athlete program, right? And I've always told him similarly, it's like, oh my gosh, the number of variables that you have to deal with. Like, I have a huge amount of respect for people that do this on a regular basis.
Let's talk about your athletes in particular. How many Invictus athletes do you have here this week?
I think we've got 4 to 6 here. A couple unfortunately had to pull out with an injury. And then we had a bunch that had to stay home, that had family issues around COVID and stuff like that. But yeah, super excited to watch our athletes compete here.
What's it like for you as a coach to see people that follow your programming, that work out in your gym, to have an ending to their season like this where there might not have been otherwise?
That was when I got the call from these guys, said, hey, we're thinking about putting this together. I'm like, tell me how I can help. I'll contribute however I need to. Because we watch these people. Jen Ryan, she's been in our gym for years, and I watched how hard she worked, and I'm like, and she won the age group qualifier. I'm like, if you don't have a chance to show what you've done over the last year or so, to me, that would just be heartbreaking. So it's not easy to have a competition these days, you know, but the fact that we were able to pull it off, I think it means a lot to these athletes to be able to showcase what they did.